Well, hello everybody. This is a trailer. It's a trailer to a forthcoming video, and it's by me on the EU carbon trading scheme, which we've joined. Now, that sounds really boring, doesn't it? But it's going to add in the region of 10 pence a litre to your fuel at the pump, and it's going to cost the country 20 odd billion, and it's going to allow for taxation in UK to be controlled by a third party completely, which is ridiculous. And so that is what the paper's about. Now, the main video will explain all it in detail, how it works, and it'll do it very simply, I promise you. But as part of that video, I've done the two interviews, one with Howard Cox, mainly on the fuel side of it, and I've done one with Ben Habib, mainly on the democratic deficit side of this to allow this to happen. These video interviews are so good, I've decided to release them as trailers in advance of the main video. And so here they are. And the first one is Ben Habib. And now over to the interview with Ben Habib as a trailer to the main video. Well, today I've got a special guest. It's Ben Habib, a man I greatly respect, and a man who's actually made me break my word to everyone, because as you all know, I've been saying I will never join a political party. And the reason is I don't want to be constrained to my freedom of speech. And I'm pretty well absolutist in terms of freedom of speech. But Ben comes along with a new party based on principles. And in doing that, it was so exciting to me what he did. I joined the party. So I'm going to say hello to Ben Habib now, who is the man who's made me already break my word. Hello, Ben.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you very much for breaking your word. I'm very grateful to you.
Okay. Well, as you say, I've done this paper to do with the carbon taxation in Europe and what we're joining and the effect of it. And whilst you can argue with certainly the paper in terms of some detail, you can't really argue with the thrust of it, which is that it's going to cost us an awful lot of money. I mean, well over 20 billion could be the cost per annum of doing,
Yeah,
if not more. And in any of these studies, one of my problems is when you do something wrong in the economy, it has knock-on effects which are huge. And they're
absolutely.
very hard to estimate, actually, because if you're going in that direction, you're going up, and when you go wrong, you keep on going down, and that
Yeah,
gap between them is enormous. And when I saw your party and what you did on that opening, incredibly good video of what you're proposing, I couldn't be more delighted. And I actually rushed through to my wife and said, "Ben's launched a party, and I'm in it already." And so on. And I know quite a few people now are thinking of leaving the smaller parties they're in and joining it. So I really hope, and I want, what I'm going to do is in this video anyway, I'm going to link below this video the link to how to join your party, because, and I'm doing a commercial plug. I'm doing it without any, it's £10 per membership to get to 30,000 members. Yes, the first 30,000 members,
correct.
£10. And that is a hell of a good thing to show that support. And if it gets to the 30,000, which raises 300, Ben's going to put in 100 of his own money, making it 400,000. And to put that into context, and I'm doing the advert for you here, to put that into context, that's about the number that Reform started off with the last election and so on. Okay, so I'm sorry for going on, but
Not at all. Yeah, no, thank you for doing that. And of course, if we get to where reform was before the last general election, people basically know that we have the army required to make a real electoral impact, which is why I chose that 30,000 figure.
yeah.
And so if the people show Advance UK that they want Advance UK, we will be there and we will have a fighting force with which we can influence politics. And so it's very exciting. And but by the way, Paul, we've raised over £90,000 in 3 days.
Oh, good.
So that's not bad,
You're almost a third of the way there.
Almost there, yeah. I'm almost a third of the way there,
Yeah, but
yeah.
I actually have suffered because I've stood on my principles, and I'm continually suffering from lack of freedom of speech. So my views are not allowed on almost on the BBC. Actually, literally ban it as a view on my climate views, if you like. Science itself has now become totally politicized and corrupted. It's no longer science because science is all about challenging. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I always start my talks by giving 2 points. There's no such thing as consensus in science. If you took that to be the truth, then every astrophysicist would be wrong, because the telescope recently has recently shown the whole model for the universe and how galaxies are growing wrong. And that's great.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and the other one is, of course, is a bloke who was a clerk in an office who came up with a theory, and the whole of the world of physics opposed him, and he was unfortunately called for them Albert Einstein. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. What I'm seeing above all, I've got 10 grandkids, is corruption of science in schools, and that is terrible. And I was invited to the Isle of Man. I was on a TV, well, they're their equivalent to TV. They do a radio which is televised, and so on. I was supposed to go to a school, and the government basically stepped in and stopped me going to give the talk, even though, because no one would challenge me, I'd said, I'm not going to talk about my views, I'm going to talk about what science is. And he got
Yeah.
banned. But the next day, the government came to give their propaganda to the school. So that's how it is in schools these days, and that's terrible. And that's it. So I feel very strongly about the democratic process, just as you do. And in fact, I couldn't think of a better match for my thoughts than you, Ben. It's as simple as that. So I'm
Oh,
so
thank you.
excited about it all. But if we get down maybe to, I don't know whether you want to say something first about your party and so on.
Well, I mean, I mean, just very quickly, we stand for four things, four very simple things that you'd think would guide every political party, but they don't, believe it or not. And the four things we stand for: the nation state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, in all its parts and for all its people, recognizing that we're constitutionally a Christian country. Number one. Number two, we believe in freedom of speech.
Mhm,
As long as it's not an incitement to violence, we believe people should be allowed basically to say that which they wish to say.
mhm,
Freedom of speech is the cornerstone of democracy. We believe, thirdly, in democracy, and we reject the influence of supranational institutions, international law, and domestic quangos in the way that they have hijacked our democracy over the last 30 years. And we wish to unpick their influence. And fourthly, we believe in equality before the law, so that there is no two-tier criminal justice, that the law is blind to your ethnicity, your social background, and Lady Justice is blindfolded once again. It's four simple things, and you'd think, the way that I've just described them, that every political party believes in those things, but they don't.
no.
And none of them do, actually. And so that's our underlying philosophical political philosophy. That's our underlying political philosophy. And now, around that, we will hang all our policies. Every policy we do will have to be consistent with those four aims.
Great. And you've got some sort of checks and balances in your setup, because you're a business person. I know that, and you've set it up, totally realistically with I think an overview of 100 people on a committee, in effect, or a panel that
I call it a college.
a
So
college,
it's an
fine.
independent body of people
Mhm,
who obviously ascribe to the mission statement that I've just described.
mhm,
And they will number up to 100, and they will act as the eyes, ears, heart, conscience, soul, and political, philosophical uh, resolution and intellectual heft of the party. They will provide what we need to ensure that as a party, as the executive in the party, we do not go wrong, that they keep the executive, the leader, the treasurer, the chief executive, the branches, the MPs, the councillors, keep them all on track. So we have a big body of non-executives who keep the executive on track. And I think that's vital. You know, the Conservative
agreed.
Party has forgotten what conservatism is because it doesn't have that intellectual heft, that heart, soul, mind, conscience that we will have. And reform has Nigel Farage, and that's it. So,
I
you
know.
know,
Although actually, I've directly fallen into conflict with Nigel a number of years ago, when the
yeah,
entire UKIP branch, of which I was on the committee, turned against him and actually campaigned against its own party in the election at the time. So
yeah,
that's how far I've got in the past, because of it. So I was looking to maybe have to accept second or third best in an election. But all I can do is hope I can help. And I've got just under 20,000 subscribers on this. And if we can get a number of those now to join after
That'd
this,
be terrific.
that's what I want. That's what I want. And so, and you're not doing it for any gain at all, nor am I. You know,
No.
we're doing it because we believe in it. And I know I've suffered when I've been on television and made some really good points and completely actually got agreement from the opposition. I've had professors attack me personally and everything and name my association with Tommy or something like this because I did a documentary, on him,
Yeah.
which did his whole life. I did a
We got to
whole,
stop all that nonsense. Just because you
uh,
met someone, you somehow get cancelled. I mean,
That's
it's just
right.
absurd. Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm not a sycophant that way at all. I'm
Yeah.
just about the truth, and I see that in you. So I hope everyone, in fact, stop the video now and join. But we got to get on to the real point.
Yeah. Let's get on with the topic. Yeah.
The topic is this. We've got this carbon tax. I've done a paper on it. We're joining the EU, and the EU, as I've explained in the video so far to give you background, means that they will be controlling our taxes. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but can we discuss the democratic aspect of that first, Ben?
Yeah. So I think there are two things that um, with which I have issue, and the first is that taxing carbon emissions or taxing the component of carbon emissions created in the I think the way the tax works is it assesses the carbon emissions that were created in when this product was made, and you get taxed according to the carbon footprint of the product. Now, taxing the amount of carbon that came out of the process that created the product does not get rid of the carbon emission. The carbon emission still took place. So if your aim is to stop carbon emissions, taxing it ain't going to help. All that does is put up the cost to the consumer and put money into the government's coffers. So they may paint it as a morally justified tax because they're trying to spin it that somehow saves the planet. It's a barrier to people buying the product, but often it's not a barrier to people buying the product. They have to buy the product. All you do is put a burden on consumers and create inflation and damage your economy. Like you were saying at the beginning, that either the economy can go up or it can go down. And once you get into a downward spiral, it's jolly difficult to break out of it. And this carbon tax is fundamentally flawed in concept. All carbon taxes are fundamentally flawed in concept, in my mind. And we don't even need to get into the climate change discussion to know
Correct.
that. Um, so that's the first thing. And then the other thing, which is the point that you so pertinently make, if I may say so, is that the we've signed up to a taxation regime that will be determined by a foreign power. So it'll be Brussels that determines the taxes that United Kingdom pay, and because it's a foreign regime, a foreign set of regulations that we're following, it'll be a foreign court that determines whether or not we're in breach of those regulations. So we will have effectively foreign laws made by a foreign power determined by a foreign court. Now, that usually only happens, Paul, as you know, when a country has been defeated in war and
Correct.
it has to take orders from the victor. And we've signed up to this voluntarily. And this is where, as we were discussing in the first segment of this interview, this is where the influence of international and supranational institutions is so damaging to our domestic democracy. Because if we can't control our own taxation, if we can't control our own regulations, we can't do what's right for the United Kingdom. We will be dancing to the tune of what's right for the European Union. And we were meant to have left the European Union. The whole thing is daft as brushes. It's a tax that doesn't work. It's a tax that's malign because it's sold under false pretenses. And it's a tax that shouldn't be levied on the British people because it's from a foreign power. It should be thrown out. And yet you have Starmer rushing into it, as he is with so many other European
Mm.
projects. And that's why I've said, and you may have heard me say this, Paul, I think Starmer is essentially anti-British,
Yeah.
because only someone who is anti-British could sign us up into these foreign obligations
Yeah.
that allow, take the knee to these foreign institutions.
Yeah, I mean, the argument that they'll make, and I have to put the argument, is by having carbon tax, you encourage the reduction of carbon. But the truth is, there's no alternative. And if you
Yeah,
look at the decline in our industries, in our energy-intensive industries, paper and paper products, steel, iron products, and so on, if you look at the decline, up to 40% in a very few years, since 2020.
oh, it's massive. The
And
deindustrialization of the United Kingdom is frightening.
it's absolutely frightening.
Yeah,
And of course, I actually worked out, I've written a number of papers recently, which will be coming out. But one little one I wrote this morning, I worked out that 1 year's reduction by us in the CO2 is made up for on the 2030 year. At the end of this phase, 1 year's reduction by us is counted in 8 hours by the rest of the world. 8 hours.
yeah, yeah. So.
It's meaningless.
Yeah, we're killing ourselves for an ideology which, frankly, well, isn't coherent and also deeply damaging to us. And even if we succeeded in going to net zero in this country, we'd be making zero impact globally.
Zero, absolutely zero. In fact, the argument is, you see, per population and all that. But let's not. I'm not going to even get into the climate CO2 thing. But
Yeah,
if you accept that, and you look at the curve of CO2, and you plot all the conferences, COP
yeah,
conferences on it, makes no difference. So nothing
absolutely.
we've done makes any difference at all,
Yeah,
and they're ignoring it. So then
it's a
they'll say,
tragedy.
that's right. Then they'll say, oh, well, China has done more in the way of renewables than anybody else. But in actual fact, as a percentage, it's tiny still. And I've
Yeah,
done all these figures in this video, actually. That'll be included in this video, that work. So it's just bonkers from every single level.
it
But
is.
not hearing with reform, who are wanting to stop net zero, in fairness, they're wanting to do that. They're not still understanding, how can I put it, the principles of what it's about. And the idea is bonkers at every single level. And it's
Yeah,
pure virtue signaling. And so our Starmer, who I agree is anti-British, can strut on the world stage and say, well, we're setting an example. If he really thinks that China and India are going to follow our example and start, making their people more impoverished, because there's
they're
so many.
laughing at us.
I
They're
mean,
laughing because
it's
they're
total
profiting at our
laughable.
stupidity.
That's right. I finished a video. I just made a video recently where I finished it with Macron meeting the Chinese at the recent Ocean Conference, meeting the Chinese deputy president, and not criticizing him. No, no, they're outside the critical zone. It's only the Western countries that get it. But thank goodness we've got America now has turned.
Yeah,
And of course, it's going to make it even worse. And so a lot of my time is spent on the net zero angle and just the engineering of it. We haven't even got the engineers, the qualified chartered engineers, to do this system. I mean, the
no,
professor, I think Professor Kelly, worked out we needed 40,000 chartered engineers very quickly, and they take 7 years, to get to a beginner level, if you like.
yeah.
And it's crazy from every aspect. So so would I
And
mean,
of course, the other implication, which you've touched on, is that you hamper our ability to move as an economy anyway with all these regulations. Just the regulate, forget about the tax, which is
yes,
damaging,
yes.
but the regulations themselves, the red tape, it just ties our businesses up in
Yes.
knots.
Well,
Yeah,
I've developed businesses from scratch. And if you work hard, let me give you an example. If you work hard at a business and the dad works away and builds up a business, this is a private company now we're talking. And let's say he ends up with a building that ends up worth 2 million, and maybe he's got £500,000 worth of machines in it. Yes. And how they're going to value this, the Treasury, I don't know for the inheritance, but they're going to take 20%. Well, he can't use
yeah,
the building and he can't use 40% of the machines, or he'd have to give 60%, 70% of the machines away to get that 20%. The business has to close. I mean, that's how idiotic the world has now become.
yeah,
And recently, the capital gains tax has resulted in a 4% reduction in yield. Yes.
yeah.
Uh, you, you
The whole thing's mad. Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't make it up. So
no,
I get going on in rants, I'm afraid.
yeah,
But is so it's the democracy angle then in the video that you've so brilliantly explained, and all I can do is thank you for that. Is there anything
thank
else you'd
you.
like to say?
No, I'd just like to thank you, Paul, for all that you do to try and shed light and shine a light on this stupidity, this folly that the country is, committed to. It is basically, um, it's a Kiri of our economy. They're just absolutely willfully killing our economy, and then you hear them say that, well, we can't cut taxes because they're unfunded. Well, what about all the damn spending that you're doing in order to pursue these ridiculous ideologies? Cut that.
Yeah,
And then cut the taxes on the working class with the savings you've made.
that's right. It's so easy, actually. But
Yeah,
even now, they're discussing, well, they're going to have to tax more in the autumn. Yes, but they're not discussing, shall we cut more? And there's been this ridiculous mess
I
in
mean,
Parliament about a few billion out of a
yeah,
huge budget. And it's not even a cut.
absolutely.
It's not even a cut. It's a cut
Yeah,
of the future rises. Yeah.
yeah, I guess the whole thing.
I mean, so although
Uh,
I'm considered by my public, if you like, as a bit of a boffin in the climate thing, in actual fact, I think what drives me is the business angle as well, very much so.
of
Uh, uh,
course, it's
uh,
about making money.
that's
It's
right.
about making the country richer, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah,
And I've watched. I live in South Wales, if you like, and I've watched the devastation of the Port Talbot area when they removed the steelworks. And
yeah,
when you say about 2,800, 3,000 jobs, it isn't. It's more like 10,000 because the satellite companies have had to close, the shops have had to
of
close,
course, it
and
has a knock-on
it
effect.
snowballs. The snowball
The
effect.
economic organism entirely is damaged.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
And they're not replacing it with anything. And there's no such thing. In the paper I'm publishing with this video, I've said, there's no such thing as green jobs because the only real jobs are jobs providing a service or a product that people require or need. And people want or need. The need may be because you might have certain jobs you need them. You don't really want them, but you need them. And the other things, yeah, I want that. So those are the requirements. But if it's a job that's not doing that, then it's not a real
no,
job.
no, I
That's the way I can put
totally agree.
it. Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on, Ben.
No, thank you, Paul.
And well, I'm just so excited. I'll do all I can to help you. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Well, get as many members as you can
I'm
on.
going to try.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
going
you.
to try. I think the difference is I know Rupert Lowe's launched a movement, as it were,
Yeah,
but I need someone to vote for at the end of this.
absolutely. You've got to make an electoral impact. I love
Yeah.
Rupert, but a movement doesn't do it for me.
No, I agree
Yeah.
with you. I support Rupert's sort of views.
Yeah.
Don't get
Oh,
me
I've
wrong, I
joined. I've
really.
joined his movement. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and so will I, but they don't clash with each other, is what I'm trying to say here.
No, sure.
But
Yeah, yeah.
we've got to bring about change in this country, and the only way is the people, you, the people. And so I beg all my followers to really look at Ben. There's details are in the page below this, and below this video, and you can click on the link and you can go and join. Yeah, and that joining is saying something. It's going to cost you a tenner, okay? Actually, for every tenner you put in, right, Ben's putting in a third of that on top, right? So you're causing him to spend more money. So please do it. Okay. Well, thank you very much for Ben. Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Paul. All
Bye.
the best. Thank you.
Okay.